All right, we want to talk about today here. A quick topic I had at the top of my head is what age is the right age to start learning about money, financial literacy, right? The way the money works, the way how important is money in our lives, and what it is that it does, and how it influences basically our every single uh, day in of our lives for the rest of our lives. And what age is the right age? Most of our curriculum in a lot of high schools, I think. But I personally think it got me to wonder, like, what age is the right age that you want to, or appropriate age that you really want to learn about your future as far as financial literacy and dealing with obviously retirement, dealing with investing, dealing with credit, dealing with uh, careers, whatever it is that really affects us, unfortunately, for the most part, in our lives, and how important your understanding of it is. And it's going to be a controversial topic, right? A lot of people might think, well, as soon as possible. And I personally think, from my experience, again, coming from a public school education in here in urban New York City, obviously we don't have access to a lot of resources. And I personally think, as a kid, it's easier for our parents to talk to us about when it comes to having your first time, when it comes to sex and stuff like that, as opposed to them talking to us about how money works, and why you should do this and do that, and try to treat it as different as possible. Um, and I think it's kind of a taboo. But I personally think that in their teenage years, formative years, when they start wanting to buy things, and I know for me or my daughter, um, I try to give her tips here and there. At the end of the day, they're gonna do what they're gonna do, but you kind of just try to give them a little bit of awareness of the financial parts of, as far as saving, as far as ownership, investing, um, credit, things that are very important, are going to be very important once they become adults. And you kind of try to show them lessons, because I didn't have this kind of understanding when I was coming out of high school. And the first thing is, when you go to college, the first thing you get bombarded with is credit cards, right? And student loans. So these are things that are going to affect us uh, through our 20s and into our 30s. And as us as millennials, we understand this because we're going through it. We have gone through it. How those decisions that we did when we were in our 20s affect us later on, when we're in our late 20s and our 30s, and sometimes even to our late 40s, depending on how much setbacks you had and how much loans you took out, obviously. But I think personally, there's a big discrepancy of what age the kids should be learning about, as far as financial literacy when it comes to handling their money. But it also has to understand that not everyone has the backgrounds. And that has a huge, I think, a huge factor. It is a huge factor in some people's lives, right? Depending on where your parents are coming from, if they're immigrant parents, if they're here working, if they're working multiple jobs just to stay afloat, if they're able to even survive, maybe they're backed up on rent. The last thing they're worrying about is how to invest, right? How to save, or how to even be wise with the money. All they want to do is just be able to pay their bills. They're not even thinking about that. So it's a gray. I think it's a type of a gray area, because just because you learn about financial literacy doesn't mean you are able to have access to it at a young age. And like, I know myself, like I said, growing up with immigrant parents, they weren't really worried. They weren't picking up books on how to become financial literate, and they didn't learn this in their countries. and they didn't come over here with the concept of wanting to eventually grow their wealth. They were just here to make a better life for their kids. And I think our generation, my generation, millennials, we are teaching our kids, the the ones that didn't have access to parents that were kind of already, I would say, Americanized, and they had a lot more knowledge, and maybe their English was a lot better, and maybe they had better resources. And then the millennial kids, like I know had a friend that um, her mom, I think, put her under her credit card at a young age. I think at like a 16, 17, I'm not sure. So when she was in high school, I mean, sorry, when she went to college, she already had a great credit score, right? Credit score was above 700, which obviously is a great score. And we all understand here the importance of credit scores. And when you become a millennial and you become later on in your life, especially when you want to maybe buy maybe buy a car, purchase a home, uh, makes up big purchases. You know how important credit is when it comes to being qualified for that, and how important was it for her to be already ahead of obviously myself, all of other kids that didn't have these type of parents that did that for them, right? And kind of had to learn it on my own and how to build my own credit along the way. But it also depends. Like I said, a lot of the times financial literacy could be, I think, inherited in the sense that the parents that you live with, they already have the financial literacy, and they have the options and the luxuries that come with that, so they're able to just pass that on. And unfortunately, it's just a kind of like a generational thing. That's what we call it, generational wealth, where they're able to just pass it on, and then their kids learn behavior, they pass it on to the next kids, and it just becomes kind of like a normal thing, right? And when it comes to where I'm coming from, minority groups, and uh, especially the Latino and Black communities, where we are very underserved, and most of our parents were low income, minimum wage, maybe workers. They are at a disadvantage, right? So it's not like I don't think they wanted financial literacy. They didn't have a choice. And I know a lot of conversations, people say, "Oh, well, you had a choice. They didn't choose to learn or whatnot." I think it's a little bit of a gray area. I think they probably could have, they would have learned or have more of an open mind situation. But to be realistic, I don't think they were against it. They just had no choice at that point. Now we're a little bit more. We're seeing their labor, and we're seeing their lives, and especially me as a first generation immigrant kid, I'm seeing what trials they went through, what lives they had, and you kind of try to understand how can you maybe have a better situation. And that's when become my research and learning, and really diving deep on all of my misinformed, the miseducation at a young age, right? So making up for it now. But imagine if we did this, if you're watching this and you're in your 20s and you're able to do this in your 20s, come mid 30s, in your 30s, you're gonna be a lot better off than myself and a lot of millennials, that especially all the Gen Zers out there. They're gonna be a lot better off than us millennials, because they're gonna learn from us, our millennials' mistakes, on our misinformation or miseducation. And this is why the power of the internet is so great, because you get to watch videos like these, and you get to kind of understand the the options you have out there. Because at the end of the day, it's not like you have to do this or you don't have to do this. It's an option. You have options of many things you can do. But understanding how to really, I think, handle your personal finances is one of the overlooked things, right? And I'm gonna talk about how much money you're making. It's more about understanding what you do, what you make, and not having to have these high-paying jobs and salaries that you're able to then hopefully manage your money until you can grow it. No, it's doing it with the money you're making now, with whatever money you're able to make. Whether it's the base salary of $30,000 a year, 40,000, whatever it is that you're able to to produce, learning what to do with that, and eventually, hopefully, growing it to your wealth, And again, we're not talking about having to have millions and millions of dollars, right? We know that according to the investing and compound interest, time is what really builds your wealth. So the earlier we start to learn and understand it, the faster. Well, not the faster, but the longer it has to compound. And going back to the age number, I feel that, personally honest, I think elementary school is a little bit too young because think about it. Yeah, you're learning about math and science, stuff like that, but at the end of the day, you don't know what taxes are. You don't know. You never pay taxes in your life. You don't know what. You don't know what fees and investing and growth and all these things. You're not really understanding that at that age. I think you're just a kid. You just want to draw and learn and be creative. I think junior high to high school is a great age. Like I think after sixth, seventh, even sixth grade is a good age to just start implementation of them understanding how money works and obviously debt, credit, obviously the different financial markets, and being able to start their own business, like things that they have other options out there. And I think high school, my middle school is a good age, because that is when you're a little bit more formative, and you are like maybe you might go to the store and you might buy stuff for yourself, or you might ask your parents for, hey, I want some sneakers, I want some shoes, I want this, and your parents are going to go buy it for you. You understand that they're buying it with money, and they work for a living, and then you start seeing more of the worldly things that we do. But I think elementary school, I saw that with my daughters. I think it's a little bit too young. Although financial literacy is great, I think at a young age they're still not able to comprehend. I'm not saying that it doesn't work. I'm not saying like there's kids that are gonna understand it, but for the most kids, they're gonna not understand what that means. And I don't think you remember it once you go to high school. I think middle school, high school should be implemented in every year, financial literacy for each of those years, at least one semester, for them to have a knowledge or a little bit of understanding of what are they going to face as an adult, right? Adulthood, right? Or maybe even a course in just adulthood itself, which is a whole another cycle. But really preparing them, because we have a great information era now with YouTube and all these other platforms that we have, where kids can jump on and learn about these things. It's not like they can't, but to be honest, they're not gonna really be looking for how to how to not go into student loan debt. Their their own thing is gonna be, basically do what they feel like they need to do at that moment. But I definitely think that financial literacy should be taught at a young age, and kind of also implement it on a daily basis on how sit them down with yourself and show them, budgeting and how we're investing and all these things that we're doing as parents, so they can understand how it works, so they can kind of follow that as well as they grow. Because if I think about it, like I said, I'm in my 30s now, um, and if I was able to sit down with my dad when I was a young teenager, and he would have sat me down and told me, "Hey, listen, this is what I'm doing. I make such and such, and I put a certain amount here. I invest. I do this." I might not know what that means, right? I might not be like, "What the heck's guy talking about?" But as I get older and I start interacting with other people, other walks of life, whether it's at my new job, whether it's in college, I will start to put the dots together, right? Connect the dots, right? And it's gonna give me an advantage, I think, personally. And again, my choices are gonna really determine what I do. But at least having that knowledge, then you move and you can act differently, right? I think also when you have an awareness of certain things, you have a choice to contemplate. When you're not aware of certain things, you don't contemplate. When it comes to like your money behavior and stuff like that, there's a lot of links. That is, a lot of the things are tied to our emotions and what we went through as a young individual. Like if you were always like myself, growing up in a low income family and a single mom at that, money was tough to come by, right? It was not like I could just get whatever I wanted, right? I had to wait. And it taught me a lot as far as struggle, and you tend to be a little bit more. They say individuals that grow up in households that there was a lot of lack of money, they tend to grow up a lot more frugal, and that's totally true. I am definitely the frugal one when it comes to that. And then if you grew up in a household where money wasn't an issue and everybody was taken care of and you got whatever you wanted, you tend to be more of a spender. And if that correlates, I don't know how true it is, but for most books that I've read, they say psychological studies, they have shown that most studies show that there's a correlation between that. So maybe if we start doing financial literacy courses and classes at a younger age, it might be able to help those kids that, like myself, grew up in those households where money was very, very, very not talked about, and there was a great lack of it. um, so it gives us an advantage, a little bit of a heads up when it comes to life moving forward. Again, just a random topic on my head. Doesn't change the fact that whatever age you are now, you're a teenager, you're watching this video, you're very, very, you don't know how blessed you are. You're actually learning and you're actually understanding this at a young age. Kudos to you. But I always feel that in the financial in literacy situation, the earlier you can pick it up, the better. But also implementing and understanding it. Just not learning about it is fine, but actually understanding it and actually taking action. So stay tuned. Keep following me. I'll see you in the next video. And like I said, learn as fast as you can because it helps you out in the long run. I'll see you guys. Peace.